I'm Shifty, and today I'm going to be sharing 7 easy upgrades you can make to your base, which will help you overcome the new challenges arriving with Apex Survival. This update is dropping on Monday, and I highly recommend you tune into the official live stream when it does. Now, before we get into our upgrades, we do need to go over a few of the changes which are motivating them. First off, survival mode is finally getting a compelling reason for you to survive. This is coming in the form of buffs, where the longer your character is alive, the more powerful they become. Second, the world is getting a lot more dangerous. Environmental hazards like storms and radiation are pretty much everywhere, and to top things off, you now get hungry. Yeah, I know many people have been against food and SE for a long time, and Keen knows that too, so they have given us the option to turn any of these new mechanics off if you don't like them, and by the same token, if they are interesting to you, you can enable them on any save, meaning you don't need to start over for this update. Alright, now let's give this NPC station a makeover so that we can jump into our upgrades. Starting with the one that is likely going to be the most significant structural change for your base, and that is cover. You're going to want to add lots of cover to pretty much everywhere in your base. For weather, you're going to want an airtight environment, and to block the sun, you just need some sort of shade. And yes, glass does work for that. If I stand underneath here, you can see that my exposure level is going down. Now, there are places where you can avoid some of these obstacles, but unless you're living in paradise or deep under a rock, you're probably going to have to contend with at least one of them. And as a result, I think the most useful thing, aside from having a stable food source, is going to be having a large interior space to work on things. Somewhere you're going to spend a lot of time building ships or repairing things. And for that, a large hangar is probably going to be your best bet. I decided to go with a medium-sized one for myself. I like to build a lot of small grids, so having a place to park them and repair them or build new ones is going to be something that I find incredibly useful. For my hangar, I also decided just to do a sliding roof. There's a lot of different ways to build hangars, and there's about a million tutorials online that you can find for doing so. This one's pretty simple. I just have a couple pistons that push this top bit over, a merge block that locks it in place that allows the interior to become airtight, and then when I want to open it, I just turn off the merge block and switch the pistons to push it back open. Aside from having an airtight hangar, you might want to consider covering your walkways. This used to be a catwalk for me, but with the storms that I have here, I figured I might as well just make this an airtight walkway. And of course, if you have places where you spend a little bit less time, you're probably going to be just fine with a little bit of shielding. I like to build here because I like my scenic view as opposed to always being in the hangar over there, which is pretty bland. So I covered this because I'm in a location where I get solar radiation. The weather's not a big deal. I can always just go inside if that becomes a problem. And also having simple covered areas to park, or even if this was uncovered, you're going to be just fine if you're just parking your ship and then running inside. The weather's not going to be intense enough to kill you between getting from your ship to getting to your front door. And also being in the cockpit of a ship will keep you safe, so you don't have to worry about having already taken a bunch of damage flying in. Now, if you are building in space and you are not living inside an asteroid, you are going to have to contend with solar radiation. This is going to be very annoying if you're like me and you like flying around a lot outside your base, and this is where you're going to construct all of your other large grid ships and whatnot. It's going to be very useful to have a space where you don't have to deal with that radiation. My recommended solution to this problem is going to be to build a solar shield. This is basically just a solar panel right here that is tracking the sun. And then I go ahead and I park my base in such a way that the sun rotates like this around me, so that I don't have to rotate in every direction. I just have to spin around my base. And then that also ensures that whatever I'm building underneath my base here is always going to be shielded. As long as the arm right here is the same length as half of your solar panel, or you can just use glass, it doesn't really matter what you use out here, but I figure if you're tracking the sun already anyway, you might as well get some energy out of it. But you make this distance the same as this distance, and then everything in this circle underneath your base is going to be safe at all times from the sun, and you don't have to worry about getting radiation damage while you're down here. To set up tracking for your shield, you are going to need a camera on whatever side that you want facing the sun. And then, like I said, we just need a rotor that's attached to the arm and a custom turret controller to set this up. You're going to set that rotor to azimuth, and then elevation, we don't need anything. We're not going to worry about that. Set the camera to this box right here. And then I like to turn down the velocity, because if you are playing on a server or something, the sun has rotated since last you were loading in this region. When you load this region in again, it's going to start rotating to face the sun. And you don't want it to go really fast in case you're flying ships in and out of that safe zone underneath your base. So turn that down. And then down here, you want to click always aim at sun, and that should get you going. Before we leave space here, let's jump into our second upgrade, which is going to be increasing access points. This is something you've probably done a lot, pretty much anywhere where you're going to spend a lot of time. You usually want some way to recharge your suit, increase your health, and then also get access to cargo. This is going to be even more important now with the increased incentive to survive and the increased ways to die. So make sure that you have those things. You're going to want access, of course, to your inventory so that you can get food, have a little snack. And then if you are dying or something, just being able to heal yourself a little bit real quick before you fly inside will be nice. Along with increasing access to those types of things, just having an easy way to get into your base or increasing the number of ways to get into your base is going to be useful. Back down on the planet here, I have a much more spread out base. So this one's going to be somewhat more critical for me to have multiple access points. I could wait and then go through that, but if I'm in a hurry, it's going to be a lot easier for me to run up here. And yes, there is an airlock on this side, but I could also just jump into a cockpit here. This is going to let me recharge, refuel, get all my hydrogen bottles filled, and then also access inventory so that I can grab some food out and feed myself really quickly. Being in the cockpit is also going to protect me from the elements, so I don't have to go all the way through the doors to save myself. Coming over to this side of the base over here, I have another really simple access point down the bottom. In order to get inside, if I'm on the ground over here, I have to go up all these stairs and then through an airlock, but I could also just run over here and I can jump really quickly in this cockpit. And this also kind of brings me to my next point. If you aren't interested in having cockpits, or if you're someone who is getting up and having to leave your game fairly often for real life reasons, you're probably going to want actually to swap this type of thing for cryosleep. I'm going to go ahead and put one of those in here. And that is because if you do end up having to leave the game and you don't come back right away, you don't want to end up dying because the server you're on or whatever kicks you and you weren't in a cryosleep. Also, for those of you that care, the cryosleep is only 15 PCU as opposed to the 150 that a cockpit costs. But speaking of cryosleeps, that is going to bring us to our next upgrade. If you're playing on a server and you haven't done this already, it's about time that you added a cryosleep room or a bedroom to your base. Someplace where everyone on your crew can sleep and has access to oxygen while they are logged out. Because if you don't, and you log out on a server, you are going to come back in, you're going to be dead, all your buffs are going to be gone, and you are going to be starving to death. The next upgrade you should be making is to isolate dangerous blocks. Anything that could kill you should probably be in a place where it can't kill you. Now that could include these hydrogen tanks here, but more importantly, I want to talk about what we have hidden way over on this long appendage to our base. And that is something new, which is that reactors, when damaged, will start spewing toxic radiation. And this is not like solar radiation, where you can hide behind a wall. So if I go over here, you see the sun is not irradiating me, but I am still getting murked by this reactor, which is behind that thing over there. And in fact, for the large reactors, the distance which they will irradiate you is pretty large. This red line marks where I'm safe. So if I'm over here and I'm standing in the shade, I will not be gaining exposure. But if I go past this line, I will slowly start gaining exposure to our reactor over there. And of course, as I get closer, that will go faster. Once I get up to 75, I start dying. Once I get up to 100, I start dying real fast. So you're going to want to probably put these somewhere, first of all, safe so they don't get damaged. If you're on a planet, I wouldn't recommend doing something like this, building them way over there. Like that can work, but maybe just build it underground where it's less likely to get damaged in the first place. And then you're also going to want a really easy way to get to them to repair them. So if they do get damaged, you don't want them to be hidden in a giant maze or buried deep inside your ship or your base where you don't have like a straight access line to get to it to fix it. Because all the time you spend running around trying to get to it, you are going to be getting exposed to radiation. If you have it somewhere like this, then you can grab all the materials you need, fly over to it, and just start patching it up right away. Also, having some sort of cargo access next to it, because these bad boys generally take a lot of parts. So having a cargo access right here would be really good. I could grab the parts, throw them in, grab them, throw them in, and repair this super fast and not die to the radiation while doing it. And yes, you are still going to be getting irradiated if you are in a small grid cockpit. So that is an option, but not much better. The next upgrade is something I've talked about in previous videos, but with all the changes in weather, it would be kind of weird not to talk about it in this one. So we're going to talk about lightning rods again. Decoy blocks do in fact attract lightning to them if lightning would strike anywhere within 50 meters of a decoy block, large or small. Instead of striking where it means to, or where it was initially summoned to, it will strike the decoy block instead. So I've got these set up. You can see that even if there is a small decoy block closer to where I'm summoning the lightning, it will strike the large one. But if there is no large decoy block present, the small decoy block will also attract the lightning to it anywhere within 50 meters. So I've gone ahead and painted all my lightning rods on the base yellow so you can see where they are. And if we grab one of these, I can just show you about how much coverage they give to my base. Anything that strikes within this area is going to hit that yellow lightning rod. I got another one over here to cover this area, and then one more in the back to cover that entire region, which pretty much gives my entire base a lightning-proof zone. Of course, the lightning rods themselves, the decoy blocks, are going to get damaged by the lightning, and once they're all destroyed, then lightning can strike anywhere. So you can, if you want to, set up your decoy blocks with welders next to them. The welders will fix the decoy block and everything else around it every time it gets struck by lightning, so that way you never have issues with that. You do want to put these somewhere that's not critical though. Like, definitely don't put your decoy blocks, like I have, right next to a critical pipe. This brings my reactor energy to my base. You should probably put them more like this one is, next to absolutely nothing that's important, because while the lightning will strike here, it will also damage a few blocks around the decoy block. If you don't feel like putting welders next to all your decoy blocks, I recommend you make an alarm system that will let you know when a decoy block is damaged beyond functionality. That way you can go out and you can repair it by hand. The way we're going to do this is with an event controller. We'll just set it up. I'm going to use a light as my indicator, so the light is up top there. And what you do is you go block integrity equal to or greater than 38% is just the percentage at which they will work for large grid. Small grid, I think it's 50 something percent, but we'll just focus on large grid for now. And then we go down here, make sure to add all of your decoy blocks, and then check the and box. And then we'll go into select actions. On the first one, we want to turn the light off. So when all of the decoy blocks are functional, the light will turn off. And then when any one of them is not functional, the light will turn on. And then you can go out, look around, figure out which one's broken, and fix it yourself. Before we move on, I quickly want to mention that lightning damage and actually solar radiation as well are by default turned off when you create a world. So if you want these features on, you're going to have to go and turn them on manually. And also, I think you should. They're going to give you incentive to go new places, and then also to build differently depending on where you are. Ah, perfect timing. The next thing you're going to want for your base is a stable food supply. And if you do not have access to endless saberoids, the best way to do that is going to be with farming. Oh my gosh, I have to reload right now. Why? All right, I survived that. Excellent. So you can get food from your environment. Killing animals will provide food, and then also you can find some out in the wild, out and about. Ooh, look at that, like that nasty chunk of raw meat. Let's pick that up. But your most stable supply of food is going to be in the form of stuff that you grow yourself, and the easiest of that is going to be to grow algae. We have new blocks. These work just like the oxygen farms. They are algae farms, and all you need for these is sunlight access, and they will produce algae. Now these blocks have a inventory, and as that inventory fills up, they will eventually stop producing. So if I go into the inventory here, you can see it fills up. It actually doesn't have that much space. So if you want to continuously be producing algae, I highly recommend having a sorter, which is set to drain all. You don't have to worry about anything else. If it's just attached to your algae farms, drain all, and then just bring that into your main base cargo. And you can see this has been running for a little bit, and I have tons of algae. And algae by itself will be enough for you to survive, because with the food processor, you can turn that into kelp crisps, which you can eat and survive off of. Now, if you want to have a little bit more gourmet experience, you have the option of using farm plots to produce all sorts of different types of food. I'm not going to go into a crazy amount of detail for these because someone else has been assigned that task, but suffice it to know that you aren't going to need a crazy ton of these. For one person, this is going to be plenty, and they are going to have to be in a moderate climate. Most likely that means you're going to want to build some sort of greenhouse. They don't actually need sunlight, but they do need a new block here that is going to convert your ice into water. Now, instead of focusing this upgrade on how farm plot works, I'm going to try and touch on something that I don't think, well, I'm hoping other people don't think to mention, and that's the fact that these blocks take water, which is being produced from ice. And normally, if you're like me, you've been using all of your ice to produce hydrogen fuel, and you haven't really been caring about anything else. So all of your ice probably is just getting thrown in a box. Your O2H2s are processing it down into maybe one small oxygen tank and then a whole bunch of hydrogen tanks. And all of your ice is always gone because it's turned into hydrogen because you're using it for fuel. That is not going to be acceptable once we have these new farm plots in the works. You're definitely going to want to reserve some ice specifically for farming. And when that ice gets low, if these ever run out of water, they are going to die. So you want a little alarm system for when your ice gets low so that you know it's happening. I have a little blue light that I'm going to have turning on up there when my ice gets low. And you're also going to want to have some sort of stockpile of ice. Now I'm going to show a simplified version of how I'm doing this outside here, just so that it's clear what's going on. This stuff over here is basically my base, and then I have my greenhouse over here. All I want in the greenhouse are a whole bunch of boxes. Really, you could do with probably just one, but I like to have about 3 of these little boxes. And then over here is our irrigation system. That's the block that turns your ice into water. And then above that, or wherever you want to put them, you can just have a ton of these farm plots. Over here, on the input side, this is a conveyor sorter, and we are going to push in. So we're going to drain all and whitelist ice, seeds, and spores. These are the 4 different things that you will be able to plant in your farm plots. So I figure you might as well just pull those in by your farm while you're at it. And then on the output, you're going to basically have this blacklist those items, and you're not going to have it drain all or anything. You just don't want any of those items to be able to leave this area. And that should be just fine. And what you're going to do, what's going to end up happening, I guess, is that all these cargo containers are going to fill with ice whenever you go out and you mine a bunch of it. And then that is going to be your buffer. That ice will only be usable for your plants. And that's going to be important so that you don't suddenly run out of ice. And when you are starting to run out of ice, you're going to want to know ahead of time so that you can go get ice before you have 0. And the way we're going to do that is with this event controller. We're going to set our event to cargo filled %. The condition is equal to or less than. And then you can kind of pick any number here. 10% just seemed good to me. And then you're going to select all of your cargo that you want to store ice in on the irrigation side of this system, and then click the AND button. That way, when we go to select actions, you can set up on the first button anything that you want to happen when all of those cargo containers are below that percentage. So when your last cargo container is emptied down to 10%, in my case, it is going to turn this light on. And when that is no longer the case, it'll turn the light back off. You can also have it play a sound alarm. So that system is going to let me know when I am running low on ice so that I can go out and I can mine some more. And my plants will never die, and I won't die as a result of my plants dying. That is going to be it for my upgrades today. Hopefully they help you transition into an improved survival experience. If you want more information about weather, farming, buffs, pretty much everything that I have touched on in this video is being covered in significantly more detail by another creator. Links to those videos will be down below, and don't forget to check out the live stream this coming Monday. Lastly, a huge shout out to Keen for bringing me in on this, and I'll see you all in the next one.